Welcome back, wanderers. You returned, just as the tale knew you would. Last time, the prologue whispered its warning. Only a glimpse, only shadows cast upon walls, but some stories do not end when the page turns. They linger, they wait. Have you come to sit with me once more as I draw the next thread from the loom? The veil has thinned since we last spoke. The fire once again burns, and tonight what was silent is ready to speak, not as a promise, but as a reckoning. The time has come. Her time has come. Come closer, wanderers. Sit with me by the firelight and listen as she reveals what has long been hidden, and her tale begins to take shape, thread by thread. Remember this. Stories do not arrive without reason. They choose their hour. They choose their listener. And tonight, they have chosen you. Chapter 1. Warning. It was extremely cold this morning, though that was hardly unusual in the heart of winter. Eoin's father, Seamus, had always felt that the highlands had more to offer than the midlands, and in the winter season Eoin had to agree. Eoin had grown up near the same small village his father had grown up in, called Dionadair. It was the only place to live, or at least that was what his father was always saying. Eoin had always felt like there was something special about Dionadair, but he couldn't know how special it truly was, considering that his grandfather had moved them to the land they now lived on before Eoin was born. He had been to visit Dionadair many times for trades and sales, or even just to meet up with friends and family that were still living within the village walls. He loved the smells drifting from the marketplace, rich with smoke, spice, and life, but he always looked forward to the welcoming quiet of the woods embracing the mountains back at home. Although Dionadair was something unique to his father, Eoin had yet to unlock the magic of whatever it was that mesmerised Seamus so deeply. To Eoin, their land was home, and the woods beyond it were his sanctuary. Looking out over their land, their home, Eoin took a few morning steps, stopping as he breathed in deep, welcoming the morning's fresh air. He resembled his father in so many ways. He had inherited Seamus's dark auburn hair, almost brown to the naked eye, yet catching the light just so, revealed the most brilliant, deep auburn glow as the sun struck it. As much as Eoin looked like his father, he had his mother's eyes, nothing compared to his blue eyes hiding beneath his wavy auburn locks. For those who knew his parents, they could see the best pieces of both of them reflected in the beauty of their children. Knowing that Eoin longed to be more stout, like his father, Seamus would tease him, telling him that he was still growing into his skin. It wouldn't be long before he filled out, but Eoin worried he would always carry the tall, graceful appearance of his mother. This worry only fueled his need to prove himself more, and sooner than he could have anticipated he would be given that chance. As Eoin went about checking on the herd and carrying out his morning chores, he couldn't help but think about the snowdrifts beckoning him to play. There was nothing more fun than running and jumping through them, but he still needed to gather firewood and straw. He thought about how many people didn't look fondly on this time of year, but to him it offered a different kind of joy that spring could never match. He knew that his mother was probably just waking up and moving around the house, so this was the perfect moment to indulge in the drifts, lying around so willingly to participate. It was as if they were inviting him. He ran through one, then another, then he threw himself into a third. And just as he pulled himself free, he saw something wrong. What appeared to be mud streaked with faint pink tinges had melted into the snow near the doorway of the barn, where they stored their straw. He had helped his father many times with butchering, cleaning, and preparing the day's kill. But this was different. It wasn't that he didn't recognize what it looked like. It was that it didn't belong here. Nothing was ever done this early in the morning. Everyone was still sleeping off the celebrations of the last hunt. It wasn't even in the proper area that they took their kills, and just as he gathered the nerve to investigate further, his mother's voice called from the house. "Eoin, boy, what are you doing over there? Get in here and help me with your sisters." Not wanting to wake his father, and knowing how late Seamus had been up the night before, Eoin abandoned the snowdrifts and hurried inside. "Breakfast smells good, Ma. What is it?" he asked as he rushed in the door. "Don't forget to pull off your boots, boy," his mother replied. "I know, Ma," Eoin said, stepping inside. "I was only asking about breakfast, not forgetting my boots." He paused. "Is Da up yet? There was something strange outside when I was checking the herd." "You mean playing in the drifts?" his mother said, her voice half joking, half serious. "It was only for a second, Ma, I promise," Eoin protested, trying to deflect the slight dart of eyes from her in his direction. "Everything's fine, fed and watered, but something was different." He hesitated. "Do you think he'd mind if I bothered him? I really..." "Really what?" a deep voice cut in behind him. Eoin stumbled as his father playfully tripped him while he was pulling off his boots. Seamus stood there grinning. "Too late, boy. Your sisters beat you to it." Seamus was a large man, intimidating to some due to his large stature and stout frame, but gentle and playful with his family. Like Eoin, he had the same dark auburn hair, though his hung in longer locks, braided and, for the most part, tied back. They framed his braided beard, which bore a richer red hue, closer to that of many in his clan. No longer athletic as he had been in his youth, he now carried a comfortable belly, proof of many nights spent around the fire, enjoying hearty meals and generous pints of ale. Wrinkles lined his eyes and mouth, carved there by years of laughter and the strain of hard labour. Unlike anyone else in the family, Seamus's eyes were flecked with gold and emerald. Elsie, Eoin's mother, was forever complimenting them, especially when the sunlight caught them just right. Dropping his shoulders, Eoin braced himself for a lecture, but his father's curiosity won out. "Seems I'm interested in what the walls are saying this morning," Seamus said. "So go on. What was different about the herd?" "It wasn't the herd," Eoin said, shaking his head a little, feeling unheard. "It was what I found on the way back, by the hay and the straw near the gate between the feeding area and the troughs. There was a patch where the snow and mud looked..." He paused for a moment, questioning himself before continuing. "Where it looked like it was mixed with blood." Before he could say more, his father's expression hardened. Eoin couldn't tell whether it was alarm or something quieter and far more serious. His father cut a glance towards his mother just as she opened her mouth. "It's probably just an injured animal," Seamus said quickly. "Hand me my boots. We'll go check it out." After handing over his father's boots, Eoin began to tighten his back on to follow. As soon as his mother shut the door behind them, Eoin looked up at his father. "Now that they were alone outside?" Eoin asked quietly. "Why did Ma look so worried?" Without lifting his gaze, Seamus replied, "Come on, I may need those strong arms of yours." As they began walking, a sick feeling crawled up Eoin's stomach, creeping into the back of his throat. His chest tightened, thinking about how quickly his father had changed the subject, but just as quickly brushed it aside, convincing himself he was just reading too much into it. He felt like his parents were hiding something from him, but why? Shrugging it off, they rounded the corner. The snow was clean. There was nothing. Seamus looked around with brooding eyes. Noticing this, Eoin reacted before his father could. "There!" he exclaimed, shock echoing in his voice as he began tracing the spot he had been just moments before. "It was right here," Eoin said. "I swear." With nothing but mashed snow and muddled footprints, it was as if it had completely vanished. Ruffling Eowyn's hair, Seamus laughed. You stir up strange things when you let your mind wander, boy. But Ian knew what he had seen. It was right here, Pa, I swear, said Eoin, wondering where it could have gone, frantically searching, questioning back and forth with ideas. Could it have melted? Of course not. It's still too cold for it to have melted this early in the morning. All he could do was look at his father without words. Placing a hand on Ian's shoulder, with laughter still in his voice, his father said, Boy, you need to stop daydreaming. Dreams are meant for those sleeping. Otherwise, crazy things get stirred up. Crazy things... His voice drifted off. Trying to stifle his lingering laughter, he motioned for them to turn around. As his father started back to the house, Eoin remained, still questioning what he was looking at. He knew what he had seen this morning, and he knew that wasn't what he was looking at right now. With nothing but confusion ruling this morning, Ian figured, if all else his father seemed mellow enough, it must not be as big of a deal as he had been reading into it. Following the steps of his father, he started back to the house. Breakfast smells drifted through the air as they returned, warm and inviting as they permeated the walls, welcoming them back. It was enough to make Ian's stomach start growling again in detest of him stepping away from it in the first place. As his mother opened the door, the table, still laid with plates left untouched, summoned them back to their seats. Elsie was a perfect match for his father. She stood at the hearth, matching Seamus in spirit and in strength. She was a little taller than most women Ian had met in the village, having a powerful, beautiful and graceful way about her. She carried so much resolve in her demeanour. Ian could always feel how proud she was, but he never saw her undermine his father. If anything, she encouraged him, which Ian wasn't convinced was always a good thing. Having the same dark, rich auburn colour, her hair fell in thick curls rather than the waves of his own, making it easy for her to braid and twist them into the most elaborate designs. Underneath her thick locks gazed blue eyes, similar to those of Seamus's, but hers had flecks of green scattered throughout the blue, mesmerising her onlookers. She was something rare to his father. Their home was always loud, always alive, and Eoin knew she wouldn't have it any other way. Wasting no time getting up to the table to finish his breakfast, Eowyn's mother was quick to shoot him a look, reminding him to take off his boots before he took another bite, always forgetting to do that when he got in a hurry. Hearing the rest of the kids beginning to stir, Ian tried even faster to get them off. If they made it to the table before he did, who knew how much food he would have left on his plate? In a last-minute attempt to save his food while fighting with his boots, he called to his mother behind him. Please don't let them grab my plate, Ma. I'm starving. And laughing a little under her breath, Elsie snatched up the plate as his older sister jumped up to the table. Oh, I wouldn't have eaten it all, his sister said. I just wanted a little bite. I can smell it all the way to my bed. Abby was her name, and she was trying desperately to sound serious when there was no seriousness to it. She was a spitting image of her mother, sprinkled with freckles as far as appearance, but Elsie swore she was more mischievous than she herself had ever been as a child. She liked to blame that on Seamus. In truth, Elsie was proud of the bond Abby had with Ian, and she hoped it would carry on for years to come. Ian wasn't sure if it was because Abby was older than him, but somehow she could always find a reason with him to be extra mischievous. By much of his responsibility around the home, you might not think that he had an older sister, but much of that responsibility was not thrown on him as much as he took it on. Ian was a very proud boy, and his sister seemed to make him feel complete most days, bringing laughter and grace to any serious moment. They both knew she wouldn't eat all his food, but today his stomach was dramatically protesting her even having a bite of it. "Calm down," said Abby. "I'm not going to touch it. I think Ma beat me to it anyway." And there she was, his mother, eating a piece of his roll. "Ma!" exclaimed Eoin, and before he could finish his thought, his mother turned around with another roll in her hand. "Well, at least we can see where Abby gets it," said Ian's father. "Enough already. Let's eat." "I'll be right back, Pa," said Abby. "I'm going to check on the baby." With a slight nod from her father, Abby was down the hallway after the littlest man of the house, first pausing, however, as she watched two more boys and girls come running out of the back room where her parents slept. She started laughing to herself, thinking about how her father must have woken up with all four of them pouncing away on him. As the children began to stir around the table and laughter filled the room, it appeared like the perfect family. 4 boys, 3 girls, both mother and father. But to those that knew this family, they knew the truths that lied beneath the boards holding the house apart from the ground, the secrets that whispered in between the walls lining the hallways, and the terrors behind the cries that every so often rose up out of the mouth of Sorcha. Whispered warnings, because whatever had taken a piece of her heart was not finished. She was the one child left remembering something that had so tragically taken a piece of her heart, and would be coming back for more. Sorcha was 4 years old now, almost 5, and it had been about a year since she had been taken in by Seamus, her uncle. She was not born with such fair hair, but now her hair shined like it had been kissed by the moonlight. Not the blonde or fair strawberry hints she had from birth. Her hair had grown so fair in the recent year, it had slowly been taking on a lighter hue, not quite white, but more of a silver hue, with hints of pale lavender beginning to appear. Her eyes were the same piercing blue that could be seen throughout her family, and much like her Aunt Elsie's, there were specks throughout them. Sorcha's were more like a snow-white fleck, and would grow with hints of silver and lavender depending on the day, sometimes outshining the blue. She had pale skin with a light rose to her cheeks. At first glance she might seem a little small and frail, being very quiet and timid, but one look into her eyes and you could tell there was more to her than appeared. Some still questioned how they could even move forward, but in the real world you either move forward or you die. There had already been enough death. Seamus felt blessed to have even found such little hope as this in the eyes of his little niece and nephew, who were now more like his own. Even now, as Seamus watched her climbing up to the table for breakfast, he found himself flashing back to that day. As this episode comes to an end, is it really? It feels as if it's but a pause, with much more than meets the eye, leaving the senses knowing there is more to be revealed. And to understand what those senses are trying to reveal, it appears we must dig deeper, deeper into what came before this beautiful morning with a full family, deeper into what happened that day, now surfacing in Seamus's memories, his nightmares. Tell me, do you think it has to do with the worry behind the comments he silenced or the questions he evaded? What we do know is there's more. Ask yourself, what do you believe is waiting there? Share your thoughts below. I wish to hear your visions of what is yet to come. If this tale has stirred something within you, mark your place beside the fire, like subscribe and turn on notifications so you will not miss the next chapter when I bring it to life. Sit with me again when I return to the loom. Watch as each chapter unfolds, thread by thread, for those who search, who yearn to know what waits in the weave. Until then, dream wisely, for the tale you choose may bind to you more than you know. Good night, wanderers, until we weave again.